back, and thanks for staying for a while, a few of you. We're actually going to have a very interesting panel now, and they're ready. And I would love to introduce now the moderator for this. She is from Assystem. She's the Vice President from North America. And Charlotte Dagon, welcome up on stage. Please give her a warm hand. And she's going to moderate this panel together with these lovely speakers we see here. Some are familiar faces. Yes, keep going. We need that energy. So, stage's yours. Oh.
Hello everyone, welcome to the World Nuclear Exhibition and to Assystem panels. I'm Anne-Charlotte Dagon, Assystem Vice President for North America, and it is my great pleasure to moderate today's session titled FOAK Without Failure, How Can New Nuclear Players Deliver with Confidence? Nuclear energy is entering a new era. Across the world, new players such as SMR and AMR innovators, new nuclear countries, are developing ambitious nuclear programs. But first-of-a-kind projects come with first-of-a-kind challenges. Long timelines, complex regulation, and unforgiving expectation regarding cost, safety, and delivery. Today, we'll explore how to make this first credible, fundable, and repeatable, how to de-risk these projects to deliver with confidence. I'll first give to each of the speakers 2 minutes to introduce themselves and their programs, and we'll then dive into our conversation. So first, please welcome the chair of the panel, Stéphane Aubarbier, Assystem Deputy CEO. Stéphane, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists to take part to that session. As mentioned by Anne-Charlotte, the topic of the session is how to be successful on the first of a kind. Why that theme? I mean, the reason is very simple. Is that we face, and the WNE tendency embodies it quite well. I mean, we just face now a new rise of nuclear power demand worldwide. As we have, I mean, when we consider, in fact, the pace of development of those programs, of the willingness of the different countries to elaborate, I mean, to execute construction of new nuclear reactors to provide electricity and time to time some heat as well. One of the main hurdles slowing down, in fact, the countries and the operators to access nuclear is the ability to fund the project. One of the main features driving to that situation is the lack of confidence in the time frame of the program, and I'm sure that some of the panelists, because around the table we have people coming from very different backgrounds, people from finance, people from operations, of course, from projects, and you will see that for finance people, I mean, the certainty, the confidence, the trust they have in the ability to be on time is key to be able to fund the programs on a competitive way. When we talk about nuclear programs, everybody has in mind the fact that we need some new nuclear reactors, but we don't have to forget that to have new nuclear reactors, we need some fuel, we need backends, and it's why around the table we have as well, in fact, some individuals, I mean, fronting that situation in different organizations, in Orano for Nicolas, in Newcleo for Elizabeth, and then they will explain as well for the projects how they think that we could be better in the way, in fact, to guarantee the timeline, the time frame of the different projects. As soon as we talk about nuclear, I mean, we know somehow the recipe to be able to be on time. The main features driving us to be successful on the delivery of the project is, first of all, to start with a design which is completed. And a design completed means encompass the fact that you avoid as much as possible any innovation. Of course, when you do a first of a kind, it's not always the case. When you do a fuel, a facility plant, when you go for a back-end new installations, it's by definition somehow a first of a kind. The second driver is, in fact, the ability to organize the supply chain to be able to service the project. And the third one is to organize the construction to favorize, in fact, the speed of the construction of the project. In those cases as well, for those features, a first of a kind is not the best way. It's hard to establish since the very beginning of the project how to be consistent in the organization in the supply chain and of the construction. So it's what the panelists will debate and will talk about, in fact, during this session. Thank you, Anne-Charlotte.
Thank you, Stéphane. I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Samal, NTPC Chief General Manager and Head of Nuclear.
Yeah, thank you. So I belong to NTPC. I have already introduced what NTPC is and what it is doing. As I discussed yesterday also, India has a target of 100 gigawatt, achieving 100 gigawatt by 2047. And NTPC being the largest power utility in India, there are a lot of expectations from all the stakeholders on NTPC to deliver on these aspects. So accordingly, we have also set a self-defined target of 30 gigawatt, achieving 30 gigawatt. Of course, this 30 gigawatt, we need to explore all the technological options, including the indigenous technology, PSWR technology, and PWR technology, SMRs, fast breeder reactors, and whatnot, whatever possible to get. So to achieve this, we have two streams, two parallel paths established. One is a joint venture company with NPCIL, which is an established player in nuclear in India. So that is called ASHUNI, Anushakti Vidyut Nigam Limited. And recently, our Honorable Prime Minister inaugurated one of the projects, that is MBRAPP, Mahi Banswara Atomic Power Plant in Rajasthan, that we have got all in place. The siting clearances, EC, environmental clearances, and all other approvals are in place. This company has already got the license from the Department of Atomic Energy to go ahead for the build, own, and operate nuclear power plants. And very soon we will start the construction of this plant. The second stream we are thinking, we have contemplated is a 100% owned subsidiary of NTPC, that is NPUNL, NTPC Parmanu Urja Nigam Limited. That is also exploring the possibility, and we are scouting for many sites to get. And in the future, these two streams will pursue to achieve 30 gigawatt by 2047. Yeah, that's my introductory remarks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Now to Josh Buckland, Director of Strategy and Policy for EDF UK.
Thanks so much, Anne-Charlotte, and lovely to see you all this afternoon. I work for EDF in the UK, and in the UK, EDF has a significant portfolio of nuclear power stations, 5 operational and 3 in defueling. They deliver about 15% of the country's electricity. And obviously, the major focus actually for EDF in the UK, apart from the safe operation of those assets, has been to expand and rebuild the UK nuclear industry with a range of other stakeholders over the recent years. You'll all know that Hinkley Point C is underway and well into the MEH phase now after the civils construction nears completion. And you may have spotted this week we actually reached financial close on Sizewell C, which is the second EPR to be rolled out in the UK and is a really good example of the sort of replication that we need to see on a nuclear program basis. The other thing we're starting to look at is our role in the context of the nuclear program beyond those projects, particularly obviously as the government is very supportive of that nuclear renaissance. So we made some announcements recently in the context of the US state visit to the UK looking at other opportunities. And so we're really keen to start thinking about what they mean. I think for me, and I'm very keen to get into the conversation, I actually started my career in the UK Finance Ministry on nuclear financing. And I think I learned very quickly that you can have the best projects, the best people, the best capability, the best innovation, but if you don't get the finance right, things don't progress. And so I think at least the UK examples give you some experience on that, but also I think one of the conversations that would be nice to have on the panel today is what can we learn from that process to get the next stage of financing right for nuclear?
Thank you, Josh. I'd like to give the floor to Nicolas Ferrand, Senior Executive Vice President of the Orano Group's Backend of the Future program.
Good morning, everyone. So the Aval du Futur, the backend, the renewal of the backend facilities in La Hague, is one of the major projects we have in Orano. The idea is to renew all the facilities we have for recycling the fuel, the used fuel in La Hague, and for manufacturing new MOX combustible fuels. It's a 45 billion euros project on 50 hectares site, so it's a very intensive project. And to begin with this conversation, to introduce this conversation, the question was, is it a first of a kind or is it a one of a kind? I think it's both. It's both because it's a first of a kind. We are the only company in the world, we are the only country in the world able to run such a recycling cycle, a recycling plant, and we will rebuild it from scratch in a really small plot of land, so it's very intensive, and no one on Earth has ever done that before. And we are going to do that with new requirements on safety, on environmental issues, and about operational efficiency, and with this very unique perspective of a plant running for 80 years. Meaning that the plant that we are going to commission in year 2040 will be still running in year 2125, a century from now. So we have to design, we have to construct, we have to commission, and we have to run a plant which will outlive us very, very largely. So it's a first of a kind, but it's also a one of a kind. First, because we know how to run the process. We've been running the process for the past 60 years, so we have a lot of expertise, we have a lot of know-how, and given the size of the program, this 45 billion euros, we've divided it into 15 smaller projects. I mean, smaller. Each of one is a mega project between 1 to 5 billion euros. And we consider that 1 to 5 billion euros is scalable. It's at the size of what we know, or what we can do in Orano, and more largely in France currently. We have a lot of industrial projects of that size in France. So in a way, it's not a first of a kind, it's not a one of a kind, it's both.
Thank you, Nicolas. Now to Elisabeth Rizzotti, Newcleo Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm Elisabeth Rizzotti and co-founder and Chief Operating Officer at Newcleo. Newcleo, a nuclear company that aims to operate a first-of-a-kind reactor by 2031. Well, delivering a first-of-a-kind is a game changer. And it is not for the reactor. It is not only for the reactor itself. It is to building the right ecosystem. Starting from the first asset, the main important asset, starting from the right people. Right people means not only the people with the past experience, with the right capabilities, but it is also the people who are strongly motivated and involved on the purpose, on the mission of the company. And then, of course, so this is the first thing. The second one is to identify the specialized capability that we need by strengthening the right partnership with suppliers. Suppliers in nuclear are extremely important with niche capabilities that we need to involve from the beginning to have a successful approach. For the generation 4 of nuclear, what is also important in the first of a kind, and this is really a game changer, is a stepwise approach from the modularization to the industrialization. This means having the possibility to build in modular and to pre-test components through very important facilities that we are building. So these are the main features. Of course, all of these approach will allow to de-risk the project and to leveraging the lesson learned by integrating them in the project during the design phase before the construction phase.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And last but not least, Jacob Higley, CEO and co-founder of Frontier.
Hello, everybody. And it's a privilege to be here at the World Nuclear Exhibition. I'd like to say thank you to Anne-Charlotte and Assystem for inviting me here. Thank you very much. And it's incredibly timely discussion on first of a kind without risk. So I'm Jacob Higley. I'm the CEO and founder of Frontier Industries. And over the last 3 years, I've been connecting the ambition of new nuclear and the hyperscalers and how we actually make reality of delivery and private finance. So most recently, we've been supporting the development of the first 2 privately funded SMR sites in the UK. We are the venture partner and the digital partner for them. And what that has done is given us a front row seat to see the collision between the fast pace of the hyperscalers and the slow and secure demeanor and culture of the nuclear sector. It's been an interesting marriage, probably a marriage I wouldn't put together and would think it would last very long in the way that, the opposite behaviors. But actually, in that chemistry there, I really see some fantastic opportunity for the future. So in that capacity, in April this year, I led and convened the first New Nuclear Summit in the UK, in London, where as a straightforward mission for us was to bring together UK government, the new nuclear sector providers, the hyperscalers, the data centers. When I mention hyperscalers, I mean NVIDIA, I mean Google, I mean Amazon, bringing those together, and actually bringing in private finance with one simple question. How does new nuclear meet the ambition, the unstoppable ambition of the hyperscalers for scalable power and energy? So how I see this sort of massive demand for power is actually the greatest commercial driver for new nuclear. And first understanding how we can build and de-risk these projects allows us then to build a scalable product. So we need to stop treating nuclear as one-off projects and turn them into, developing into nuclear products that are repeatable, that have predictable, bankable costs and a timeline. So this is about fundamentally shifting it into a model from replication, into replication and standardization, from a first of a kind into first of a product line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to address the first question to you, Mr. Samuel. As you said, you are an historical player in the energy field, but not in nuclear. As you are developing your nuclear program, what are your key priorities to secure the delivery? And what risks and challenges have you already identified that you are already trying to mitigate?
Being a new player in this field, our first priority is developing the capability. So you need a capable workforce to execute the project. The nuclear power plants being a knowledge-driven sector, so you need to have a capable workforce to execute in the future. Without that, it's not possible, number one. Number two, searching for your partners. Being a new player, you need reliable, trustworthy partners to take it forward. And we have already got one NPCL, as I said, for the Ashwini. We have for the Indian PSWR technology. We are also discussing with Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research for fast breeder reactor technology. And we are discussing with many players for PWR and SMR technology as well. So we need to have some partnership to move forward. Then next priority is you're getting greenfield sites, because this is the most difficult thing to arrange. So though the coastal sites are preferred, but it is very difficult to get meeting 30 gigawatt, finally 100 gigawatt by Government of India. You need lot of sites, lot of grid sites to be developed. And the most challenge you are facing, getting fresh water. If it is not on coastal side, then you have to have land is available. There is not a problem. The problem is getting fresh water. For that also we are struggling and arranging that. The next thing is the public opinion, public support. You have to gather public support for these nuclear power plants. You know there is a, some negative connotations towards nuclear energy as such worldwide. So that also we are working on this, how to develop public support, how to develop the understanding, the misconceptions, and the awareness of the general public as a whole. That also we are working on. The second thing is fund, requirements of money. You have to arrange, it's a huge capital-intensive sector, so you have to arrange a lot of money for that. So we are discussing with many funding agencies like World Bank, New Development Bank, Asian Bank, and all our domestic banks to support this at an affordable rate. Because finally, this has to be commercially viable. So being a capital intensive, maybe about 70% of the cost comes from the fixed cost, as a fixed cost from the financing arrangements. So all these things we are working on as a priority area to develop this capability. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So you mentioned financing. Josh, you said it yourself, financing is key. Could you tell us a bit more about the different forms of financing schemes and strategy that can be used to secure project delivery?
Of course, and obviously it's sort of been talked about a little bit already. The title of the panel is First of a Kind. I think we need to think about nuclear as not just either first of a kind or next of a kind. It's a sort of sliding scale between the two. I use Hinkley Point C as an example. We're already seeing really significant performance improvements from Unit 1 to Unit 2. Effectively, it's 2 nuclear reactors, obviously, and therefore you can gain earnings over time, and productivity gains of 20 to 30% between units. In addition, we're seeing really significant increases in prefabrication off-site and on-site, and that makes a real difference. Around 60% of the civil construction can now be done on a prefab basis. So you're sort of modularizing the current technology over time. And I think for us, that makes the financing journey a bit easier, and it makes it more an open conversation around different routes. But it does mean you need to move away from seeing things as a binary. For me, the most important aspect of financing models, because they're also on a sliding scale, is how do you sit the risks with those best able to manage them? And that's something we haven't necessarily got right in the past. Financing structures have either loaded a significant amount of risk onto the state and the consumer, or alternatively, all of the risk to developers. And what you're now seeing is a more open debate around how do you best place risks in the right area. So areas like regulatory and political risk should be ultimately for the state to manage. Equally, capability and delivery risk should sit with both the developer and the supply chain and the technology provider. And the model that we've used now for Sizewell C in the UK, the regulated asset-based model, is a much more innovative structure for managing those risks and placing them in the right way. In addition, if you can bring in private finance, you also bring in entities that are focused on managing and down those risks, not just kind of noting that they're there. So one of the big themes we've seen as there's been a greater level of interest in SMRs in the UK is a real focus on regulatory reform to minimize risk and accelerate development. So again, the more that you can get private finance into the capital stack, either at development or at construction stage, the more chance you've got of driving a more active conversation on how we deliver on time and on budget. The final thing I would say very quickly is the really interesting dynamic, and it was sort of mentioned by Jacob earlier, is now you're seeing the connection between data centers and nuclear. There is obviously a more of an opportunity to also monetize the route to market. So effectively buying power ahead of time to help finance projects. And that is kind of the strategic demand that we haven't necessarily seen for decades, in truth. And it's a really exciting opportunity, not just obviously in the UK, but actually kind of globally.
Thank you, Josh. And building on what you just said, Jacob, you work a lot with hyperscalers, new players entering the nuclear fields. How do you see these new players disrupting the financing, the business models, and how does this impact project delivery?
Oh, thank you, Anne-Charlotte. So this is a crucial question, and the short answer is yes, as the hyperscalers are not just disrupting the financing, but they're fundamentally re-engineering the nuclear business model, specifically by providing a commercial anchor needed for a first-of-a-kind product. So For many years, obviously, these projects are beholden to government contracts and state-owned utility financing. But today, with the insatiable AI demand, what we're seeing is, if I may get this right, AI is the largest capital investment of human history. It's $20 trillion by 2030, which is 3% of the GDP. That demand is giving rise to new models, new innovative models. And what we've discovered is that these early agile investors aren't traditional investors. We've got them in three categories so far. We have the hyperscalers themselves, who are acting as these anchor customers because they want the power purchase agreement. But ultimately, they actually want to embed themselves in the actual energy value chain with their technology going forward. Secondly, you've got the high net worth individuals who typically are industry owners. So they see the reason behind a small modular reactor or a modular reactor then providing energy to their industry and being a local sort of anchor for their industry growth. And third, you have philanthropic funds. And these philanthropic funds are coming as a dual mandate of obviously the climate crisis we have and reliable energy needed for security. Also, what we've noticed, and through our experience, is what we've seen is waiting 8 years for energy and your returns on your value, it's just too long for the hyperscalers. So new models have had to be created. And we've got to bridge that gap. So from data site license to energy generation, let's say it's 4 to 5 years to site license, 4 or 5 years to generation. So what we've realized, the models that we've developed are around generating early returns through early deployment of high response AI energy systems. If you deploy an AI data center within the first year, you can then start seeing returns of excess of 100 to 200 million pounds in revenue within your project, which starts de-risking the project. You then also have the power infrastructure being tested, the land starts generating returns, and actually the whole infrastructure of the project is now become much more viable. By year 4, by the time you get your site license, you now have a really investable project. At that time, maybe you want to exit, or maybe you want to go forward and deliver the whole project. But ultimately, we aren't delivering just electrons anymore. We're delivering fully integrated zero-carbon AI and energy infrastructure solutions, which are deployable at pace.
Thank you. Moving away from financing and business model, which are key to secure the delivery, it's also interesting to look at good practices from other sectors. Nicolas, you used to work for the Solideo, so in charge of delivering the infrastructures for the Paris Olympic Games. They were actually delivered on time and below budget. What can we draw from this experience that could be applied to new nuclear projects?
Oh. Okay, the comparison between the Olympics and the nuclear sector can be a little far-fetched at first. I mean, it's not exactly the same scale. For the Olympics, we had a 5 billion budget, roughly, which is 10 times lower than for the Aval du Futur project. And we had 7 years to deliver all the building and infrastructures, whereas here we have 25 years of construction before commissioning. Anyway, we had exactly the same constraint, both in the nuclear and in the Olympic. We have to deliver on time, absolutely on time, on budget, and fit for purpose at the very beginning. So I don't want to make a 101 class about managing mega projects. So let me just emphasize on 3 points. First, during the Olympic, one of the key reason of success was governance. We had a very strong governance, and it was essential to manage all the changes. And this is something very similar to the nuclear sector. In the Olympics, as in the nuclear, we have a lot of very brilliant, smart people who have very good ideas, but not at the right time. You can't change a design, you can't change a room, you can't change a stadium as the cranes are running. And you have to contain all the good ideas when they come out of time. And for that, you need a very strong, a very unique governance so that you don't have people from the outside who says, but Mr. D said that, and it's a good idea, and you should change what you're actually building so that you can take into account its idea. So first idea, good, a very strong governance with a clarity of roles set at the very beginning. Second idea that I would share with you is obviously planning and risk management. what I would say is that risk management is not about avoiding the risk. We will have a lot of difficulties. We will have a lot of problems. In the Olympics, we had lots of things which would have done, have us toppled and not deliver on time. The key issue for us during the Olympics and the key issue in the nuclear program is how do you detect the problems early enough? How do they climb up fast enough so that you are aware of them? And how do you have a very strong mobilization of all the stakeholders around the solution of the problem that we will face, so that they don't blow, they don't go too large to be managed properly. So I think risk management is about creating a common culture and to think ahead of time, but not to avoid the problems. You know this expression of problem welcome. This is a real issue in the nuclear industry. Okay, for the planning, you know that, managing short-term, long-term, you know that. And third idea, partnership. On the games, we had something like, just to build what we had to build, we had something like 800 different firms, 30,000 workers working at some point on my building sites. And the issue for us is to create this common culture, is to create this kind of common vision. And it's exactly the same for the Aval du Futur project. We will have hundreds of companies and maybe some of yours working on this project. And the idea and the key issue is how you give a common direction to everyone without over-controlling, but with being sure that they deliver on time and budget and exactly as you expect. In a way, it's about gathering all the ships into a herd and not letting them scattered all over the place. We succeeded in the games to create this common culture, this community of the builders, and we will do that the same in the Aval du Futur project.
Thank you, Nicolas. I'd like to now leave the floor to Elizabeth. So you are the perfect example of first-of-a-kind program at Newcleo. According to you, Elizabeth, what is key to deliver with confidence for a player like yourself?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say that I couldn't agree more with what has been said so far, because it is really applicable for all of our projects. I would say that the key elements are in the design phase is the simplification. Being focused on simplification is key. Why this? Because, and this requires a very special mindset, because convincing a scientist of their proposal and asking them to change just to simplify the project is not simple, okay? But we need to do this, because if you don't go on the simplification, the repeatability will become very difficult. And we need to be scalable. We are not a research center. We are a company with industrial purpose. And to be scalable, you need to be simple. Even if this sometimes requires modification, requires sometimes delay, because you realize that your solution is not the best, you need to be more simpler. And so you need to stop and to restart, but this is absolutely key. The second aspect could be we already mentioned, well, the supply chain, the strategic supply chain, to be able to identify from the beginning who are the best and specialized capabilities that you need to be really excellent on the different components. No companies can be able to cover all the capabilities you need for a first-of-a-kind project. So it is, again, it is important to establish very good relationship in the nuclear ecosystem where you are, identifying the key actor, the main player, and identifying also and having very good relationship to be sure that you are in the eco-nuclear system. and then identify the specialized suppliers, because you need also to identify the niche capabilities that will support you in bringing in the project solutions that have already been solved. You don't need to invent everything. This would be also an accelerator. Well, we also mentioned the, to have a stepwise approach from the demonstration to the industrialization means that you have to pre-test components and functions. This requires a lot of facilities, a lot of investment. This is why I'm also I absolutely agree with what has been said on the financing. Of course, for a company to invest in a first of a kind, of course it is a huge investment, but this is the way to give new innovations solution for the industry, for the market. So this is the reason why having support, having encouraged a company is that with the public support is extremely important. Last but not least, having very good relationship and trying to have lesson learned from the relationship with the regulatory. Well, we need to establish a win-win approach with regulatory, because regulatory are there to allow you to deliver your first of a kind. And listen to them and find together the best solution is absolutely key. And this requires, again, a very open-minded approach and flexibility. Believe me, it is key, and it is really the way to be successful and deliver what you are looking for, first of a kind.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Jacob, when we prepared the panel, you also mentioned the ecosystem part that Elizabeth talked about. How is this key for you to de-risk first-of-a-kind projects?
Thank you, Anne-Charlotte. So let's unpack this term, first-of-a-kind, because when we look at something like modular reactors, if we look at the actual unbundling that risk and we look at the technology itself, well, we know that's been on our submarines for 50 years going around under the sea. We know that then we site license, well, we've done that many times before. Project, delivery itself and then managing those, all the different parts, if you unbundle them, have been solved before, either in nuclear itself or other industries. Even something around modular reactors have been deployed. So what I'm seeing is about the focus is unbundling it and defining those proven parts and then bundling it back up into something which is a repeatable product. Also, the key I see it is that once we started de-risking, let's say our first rule here is choosing wisely our partners. The second rule is now we understand we have proven parts. It's about creating absolute visibility of that risk. And due to the advent of digital-first technologies, and if you all understand what an AI-first platform is, if you don't, please come and speak to me or see Frontier Industries. The idea is it helps us have that visibility of each risk before it even happens, making sure that we start codifying all these risks into the actual, this is a new venture. We can build these enterprises. Don't just think of the asset itself. Think of all the visible, invisible architecture that's in our minds that needs to be made visible, then digital, that then allows us then to see these risks coming. We can build that today. So once we have this, let's call it the digital lifecycle platform, which has our risks already now codified into our businesses, it leads us into the third phase. And our third phase is now how we can exploit AI. So the nuclear industry itself is extremely rich with data, but it's pretty poor with insight. So this gives us that advent to be able to turn the tide on that and have a organization with all that. Think of all the paperwork that we've generated over the time within the nuclear sector. That could now be the intelligence of your organization built into your venture, built into the actual, the bedrock of your business. So bringing in AI, we can start at Frontier. We're now developing on our first-of-a-kind projects algorithms for project certainty. These algorithms can help us understand work pack certainty and understand where our actual blockers are within those projects and solve them before they happen. Let's look at other sectors like fintech. Fintech are fantastic for regulatory technology. Well, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it, with the nuclear? Without getting too technical and too geeky, and giving away too much IP bingo, is to show that, machine learning around the license condition versus our enterprise wouldn't be too far of a hard stretch to develop. And thirdly, cyber threats. So once we have such vast computing power next to our modular reactors, we have them side by side, we can start doing simulated cybersecurity. A big, large vision which I have is 10 to 12 sites around the UK, all generating vast amounts of carbon-free power. On that site, you have a nuclear reactor. You have also your AI infrastructure. Start connecting those as a grid, a defense grid over the UK. Start looking at how cyber could be simulated on a mass scale. And that then will bring us our energy and security that we will need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us close to the end of the panel, but before we do so, I would like to leave the floor to our chair, Stéphane, to conclude the panel, and maybe to launch your conclusion, a provocative question, Stéphane. With everything we've heard during the panel, is innovation key to deliver first-of-a-kind program?
Well, I think that Jacob has answered partly to that question. It's obvious that to simplify, in fact, the design, to have a stable design, and to avoid changes, to fight against the changes that Nicolas was pointing out just before. I mean, using digital technology, managing the requirements of the programs and matching, in fact, the quality of the design with the requirements, including of the safety authority, as pointed out by Elizabeth, is key. And of course, the digital tools we have available right now are a unique mean to be able to do so.
Any concluding words?
Shall I conclude?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because we have only a couple of minutes left.
Okay. So I think that the panel just enhanced the fact that the demand is tremendously growing for nuclear, as it was said by Jacob especially, and embodied as well by Samar from NTPC and the Indian government, that funding is crucial to be able to do those projects, and that risk mitigation, not risk avoidance, but risk mitigation is key to be able to access, in fact, I would say, acceptable financing. To do that, to mitigate the risk, the simplification of the design and the quality of with the safety authority is possible and is key to be successful. As I was just saying before, using the digital tools, the avoidance of change, the no change management is particularly important to be able to do that. I would just point out at the end something that has been said by some of the panelists at the beginning, is that human resources and ability to mobilize, in fact, the resources all together to deliver the project on time is absolutely key. We don't talk that much about that point. Usually, I think it's one of the key topics of the key takeaway we can have. And of course, just to conclude the roundtable, I would say that as are doing all the panelists around the table, using Assystem as an owner engineer, as an engineering partner, is probably a good way as well to mitigate the risks. So thank you for your trust and confidence, and let's carry on. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to this panel, and thank you, Anne-Charlotte, for moderating. And for those of you who, thank you so much. For those of you who are in for it, we're in a couple of, I would say, like maybe less than a minute. We will have the new panel here that starts at 3 o'clock, which is really in just a minute. So please be with us and join us for the next panel, which is chaired by Framatom. So please be with us. We're just going to do some small arrangements on stage, and then we start the next session.